Now at noon, more details about the double homicide that happened inside a Battleground home earlier this week, including the relationship between the suspect and one of the victims. Also this afternoon, the search intensifies for the Central Washington father accused of killing his 3 young daughters. What we know about the man that could make finding him a long, difficult process. And later, a group of sled dogs rescued from Idaho get a second chance to show off their racing skills in Oregon. KGW News at noon starts right now. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Drew Carney, and we just learned an hour ago the names of the 2 victims in a double homicide in Battleground earlier this week. The medical examiner says 37-year-old Tiffany Vela and 37-year-old Spencer Jones both died from what are described as multiple sharp force injuries. Dispatch audio called it a stabbing. It happened Tuesday near Northeast 2nd Avenue inside a home that was owned by Vela. Investigators identified the suspect as 40-year-old Evaristo Jr. Vela, who was also found in the house Tuesday with critical injuries. Social media profiles suggest that Tiffany and Evaristo were married.
Sadly, though, when you're dealing with domestic incidents, these things can become tragic. Emotions get involved and people act out of emotions.
Evaristo Vela remains in the hospital this afternoon. Meanwhile, the search for the man accused of killing his 3 young daughters in Central Washington is now a nationwide manhunt. The most recent footage of Travis Decker was captured on this Ring camera video before his last scheduled visit with his daughters. The bodies of all 3 girls were found Monday near a campground west of Leavenworth after Decker failed to bring them back home to their mom last Friday. People reported possible sightings of Decker yesterday in Leavenworth and McCall, Idaho, but the local sheriff's office says it wasn't him. Investigators believe he has the skill set to survive in the wilderness, living off the land for weeks or even months.
When talking with his father, it sounds at times that he would go out and would be living off grid for sometimes up to 2.5 months. So we also understand too that he at times would do caching. So we understand that that's a possibility that he could have scoped out this area before, put supplies out there, and has the ability and the knowledge to survive.
We've also learned Decker was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and within the last year, visits with his kids were cut to every other weekend because of his mental health. All right, traffic alert to tell you about this afternoon involving the Max Blue, Green, and Red lines. Riders can expect delays on Sunday and Monday as crews lay the groundwork for a full renovation of the Northeast 82nd Avenue Max station. Workers are building a new stairway to access a temporary Max platform at that station. Shuttle buses will help riders navigate around closed stations between the Oregon Convention Center and the Gateway Transit Center. All right, let's check in with Chris McGinnis now in the Weather Center. Chris, we are inching towards the weekend with another pretty nice day out there.
Hey, Drew, let's go fly a kite. There you go. This is live from the Chinook Winds Casino Resort Camera in Lincoln City. Always great kite flying weather along the Oregon coast, right, with the breeze. And also off in the distance, you can see the cloud cover over Cascade Head. It's obscuring the very tippy top there of the headland, but that too will be clearing out as we go through the day. It's 56 right now, by the way, in Lincoln City. Some clouds have popped up around the tippy top of Mount Hood here. This from Oregon's Veterans Home in the Dalles, where it's currently 76. Meanwhile, the sky camera out in Aloha showing the cloud cover breaking up really nicely in Washington County, while we're still stuck beneath a little bit of a cloud deck here over downtown. It's 63 right now in Aloha, and you can see here in the visible satellite imagery, cloud cover has been a little slower than I expected to erode this afternoon, but it is eroding. Remember, we were socked in all morning here from the Cascades west towards the Coast Range. That cloud cover is, though, thinning, and it will continue to do so as we go through the afternoon. Right now, it's 63 degrees at PDX, and the plan for the rest of the day calls, well, I'll get to that in a second, 63 Beaverton, 65 in West Linn. East of the Cascades, even warmer right now, it's 75 in Pendleton. All right, we continue with the clearing trend, so we become mostly sunny by late today, with temperatures inching up towards 80, maybe 82 degrees or so in town this afternoon. Warmer tomorrow, and then, Drew, we are looking at a little mini heat wave, if you will, coming our way for the upcoming weekend with 90-degree heat, potentially mid to inching into the upper 90s on Sunday. More on that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Chris, in the meantime, we do want to get back to some local news headlines here this afternoon. This next story, really interesting. A class action lawsuit accuses local grocery outlet stores of deceptive pricing. The nonprofit Oregon Consumer Justice alleges the discount grocer uses elsewhere price labels that are made up and don't have any real connection to an actual competing store. The labels make it look like Grocery Outlet is offering prices that save their customers money, but the lawsuit claims shoppers are often paying either the same or even more than they would at nearby stores. KGW reached out to Grocery Outlet for comment, but we haven't heard back yet. All right, at the start of the next month, the city of Portland plans to enact the largest parking meter fee increase in the city's history. Now, keep in mind, the cost to park for just 15 minutes in downtown has nearly doubled over the past 3 years. City leaders say they have to raise parking prices to pay for road maintenance. The Transportation Bureau remains in deep financial trouble, even though parking revenues have increased year after year. Mayor Keith Wilson says he's confident that people will still come downtown and the city will continue to rebuild, even with the higher cost to park, but some other people not as confident.
With that, and then also hit with the higher parking fees and probably higher ticket fees, it's like it's a huge ding.
Coming up tonight on The Story at 6:30, KGW investigator Evan Watson takes a closer look at Portland's parking history, the rising cost to park in recent years, and why it might not stop with next month's increase. President Trump's sweeping new travel ban aims to keep people from a dozen different countries, mainly in Africa and the Middle East, out of the U.S. For the latest on this story, here's NBC Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander.
Overnight, President Trump issuing a sweeping new travel ban, barring people from a dozen countries, primarily in Africa and the Middle East, from entering the U.S.
We will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm.
The president citing national security threats, including this week's terror attack in Boulder, Colorado.
By the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas, we don't want them.
In his first term, the president barred travel from several Muslim-majority countries, but those bans faced a series of legal setbacks. And it's one of a flurry of executive actions President Trump took last night, including a new broad investigation into his one-time political rival, former President Biden. Democrats call it a distraction from new criticism to President Trump's signature budget bill.
But it is chiefly in service of trying to get us all talking about that, or talking about the Biden investigation they launched today, instead of talking about the centerpiece of this story, which is this bill.
President Trump ordering his administration to investigate whether Biden's aides, quote, conspired to deceive the public about the former president's mental state, and to look into Biden's alleged use of an auto pen to sign documents. But President Trump is now using the issue to open a broader sweeping investigation, ordering the government to look into many of Biden's actions, including appointments and pardons, arguing they are not valid. President Trump's presented no evidence that Biden was unaware of any actions taken in his name, and the auto pen is common in Washington and legal for the president to use. Earlier this year, President Trump saying he's occasionally used it himself.
Only for very unimportant papers.
Former President Biden saying in a statement overnight, "Let me be clear, I made the decisions during my presidency. I made the decisions about the pardons, executive orders, legislation, and proclamations. Any suggestion that I didn't is ridiculous and false."
Again, that was NBC's Peter Alexander reporting from Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, back here locally, we saw people protesting in Vancouver yesterday after ICE agents arrested an asylum seeker from Mexico inside a federal courthouse in Portland earlier this week. KGW's Catherine Cook brings us the latest on this case.
In downtown Vancouver, demonstrators demanded due process for all. They chanted support for immigrants, and they pointed fingers at ICE.
And pretty soon they're knocking on our door for something we don't know we even did. So I think we have to nip this in the bud.
Elton Billings and his wife Christine were stunned over what happened in Portland Monday. ICE agents detained an asylum seeker from Mexico after she left a hearing in federal court. The woman's lawyer says she was seeking asylum and safety in the U.S. after men in a Mexican cartel raped and threatened to kill her because she's transgender. For the Billings, the case feels very personal. They have a transgender daughter, and Christine is an immigrant.
I couldn't stand the idea that they were taking somebody who was already in the process of seeking asylum and who had moved here to find safety and just disappearing her.
we want people to obey the law, sure, but we want the government to obey the law too.
ICE agents are following a Trump administration policy that allows them to detain people in courthouses. Attorneys for the woman say it appears this case is the first of its kind in Portland.
She complied with all the rules here. She applied for asylum. She attended her court date as required by the government. And then ICE is engaging in this unethical tactic to trick people.
I think it will happen another time here unless more people protest and speak up.
Attorneys for the asylum seeker filed a federal petition asking a judge to bring her back from a detention center in Tacoma and continue her case in Oregon. They say what agents did Monday violated her rights to due process. DHS and ICE have until Thursday to respond. In the meantime, the Billings have long-term concerns.
And I lived under martial law in the Philippines, and I can see all the signs that are happening here of martial law and a dictatorship.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.